this is different, isn't it? I'm still trying to get my head around and get used to these Zoom assemblies. It's not the way that I normally do things. It is different. But then again, I guess there's a lot of difference at the moment, isn't there? I bet you have heard so many times recently, we've just got to do things differently. I bet you, I mean, how many times have you heard it loads? This is different, that is different. I mean, everything seems to be different. Like these assemblies, you know, this collective worship. Now, this time, I'm not there with you. But I am, because I'm here, I'm sharing with you, and yet, I'm not in school with you, I'm here. It's different. But we can cope. We can do different. Different doesn't have to be bad. And the story that I'm going to tell you this morning is all about somebody who had to do something really, really differently to how you might expect to do this thing. It was definitely not normal. So our story starts down a hole, down a big, big hole. Well, where I'm starting the story, it does anyway. I mean, the story starts before the hole, but we're starting it down a hole. Now, this hole, I've said it was a big hole. It needed to be a big hole because down this hole was hiding a man. Not just any old man though. Oh, no. The man who was hiding down this hole, well, he was called Gideon. And the reason that he was hiding down this hole was because he had done something that I am sure none of you have ever done before. He was hiding down the hole because he had annoyed people. He'd annoyed a whole load of people, and now he'd run away and he was hiding down the hole, hoping that they weren't going to find him. He did not want them to find him because he was scared of what they would do to him if they did find him, because he'd annoyed them. Like I say, I'm sure none of you have ever done anything that would annoy somebody so much that you had to run away and hide. Surely none of you would do that. Whatever. So Gideon is hiding down the hole. And as he's hiding down the hole, probably praying to God, please, God, don't let them find me. Don't let them find me. Don't let them find me. Please, God, don't let them find me. The thing with God is that when you talk to him, he has a tendency to answer. And when Gideon was hiding down the hole, God had a word with him. Gideon, God said, I need you to get out the hole. I need you to get out the hole because I've got a job for you to do. Gideon was not keen on this idea. I mean, he loved God and he trusted God, and God had always been there with him right throughout his life. He knew that, he trusted that, he really, really did. But now God was asking him to get out the hole that he was hiding in so that the people he'd annoyed wouldn't find him. But now God was asking him to get out the hole. This did not seem a good idea. But God, as God often does, just gently nudged. Come on now, Gideon. I've always been with you. You know you can trust me, and I've got a job for you to do. I need you to get out the hole first, though. Gideon got out of the hole. And as he was getting out the hole, and he's kind of sitting on top of the hole, you know, just on the edge, not actually on top of the hole, that would be impressive. But no, sitting on the edge at the top. God said, so Gideon, you know the Midianites. Now Gideon did know the Midianites. Gideon was very, very well aware of who the Midianites are. You may be less sure. I was not aware of who the Midianites were. But Gideon knew the Midianites because the Midianites, well, they were people from a neighbouring country. And back in the time when Gideon lived, and back in the place where Gideon lived. This sort of thing happened a lot. This sort of thing being the Midianites were wanting to invade. They wanted to come into Gideon's country and take over. They built a huge army and they were camped right on the edge of the town where Gideon was. So Gideon knew very well who the Midianites were. God continued, Gideon, you know the Midianites? Well, I want you to get together an army and to go and defeat them. What? What? But I'm not a soldier, said Gideon. I don't know how to fight. I don't know how you get an army together. I'm not even brave. I was just hiding down a hole, remember, God? I'm not brave. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a fighter. You've got the wrong person. You need somebody else for this job. But God said, no. Trust me. I know what I'm doing. I want you, Gideon, to do this. So, off you pop. Go get yourself an army. Now, I am also not a soldier. And I'm not too sure of how these things work, but I am fairly certain that it's not normal to just wander around and get an army. But that's what Gideon did. I don't know what he said. I don't know how he did it, but somehow Gideon managed to gather himself an army that was so impressive that he started to feel just that little bit more confident in what it was that God had asked him to do. He'd managed to convince about 30,000 people to come and help him fight the Midianites. 30,000! So then he stood and he said to God, look, God, I've got the army just like you said. Look at all these men that I've got. And God looked and went, yeah, it's pretty impressive. We've got too many. You don't need that many. Oh no, but I think I do, said Gideon. I have seen the size of the Midianite army and I don't know a lot about fighting. I'm not a soldier, but I do know that if you're fighting a big army, then surely you also need to have a big army. You need lots and lots of men. That's what I've got. Look, I've got 30,000 men. I think we can do this. No, said God. You've got too many. I want you to tell those who are scared that they can go home. Tell those who are scared they can go home. What if they all go? What if they all up and leave because they're all scared? I mean, I'm asking them to fight. They're going to be scared. Gideon, God said, tell those who are scared they can go home. Trust me. This might not be the normal way of doing things, but trust me. So Gideon went and spoke to all these 30,000 men that he gathered and he said, those of you who are scared, you can go home. You don't need to fight. And about 2/3 of the men went. He was left with about 10,000. And suddenly this idea of fighting the Midianites was becoming scary again. He was just getting confident with the 30,000. Maybe they might be able to do this, but with only 10,000, it's not looking good. And then God had some more news for Gideon. Right, yeah, Gideon, still too many. I want you to take all of the men you've got left. I want you to take them down to the river for a drink. Okay, said Gideon. Okay. So they went down to the river and a bunch of the men, they knelt down on the riverbank and they dipped their heads into the water and they started like lapping the water up, you know, like a dog might drink. Who drinks like that? Who does? Well, apparently a whole load of these men did. Yeah. But then there were some who did the more usual method, and they scooped some of the water into their hands and then slurped it from their hands. Kind of how you might expect more people to drink if you didn't have a cup, which none of them did. Gideon watched all this, as did God. And God said, right, all of those who lapped the water up like a dog, we don't need them. No, Gideon, tell them they can go home as well. Gideon was very, very reluctant to do this because there were a lot more of the men who had drunk like that than had scooped it up into their hands to drink it. But he kept trusting God. And he told all those who had lapped the water up like dogs that they could go home as well. He was left with 300 men. He was getting more and more scared with every passing minute. He's like, God, how on earth are we going to defeat the Midianites? They've got a huge army and now all I've got is 300 men. How's this going to work? And God said, well, we're going to do things just a little bit differently. You might have picked up on that by now. Here's the plan. And he whispered his plan to Gideon. And Gideon listened. And Gideon raised an eyebrow. Really? That's gonna work? Okay. Gideon told God's plan to the 300 men who were left. And then he gave them all the equipment that they would need to defeat the Midianites. He gave them each a torch, which was hiding under a clay jar, because it was a big flaming torch, not like, a torch that you switch on with batteries. It was a flaming torch hidden under a jar, and a trumpet. They waited until night time, and when it was as dark as it was going to get, really, really quietly, Gideon and his 300 men crept up to the Midianite camp and they surrounded it all the way around the outside. The Midianites, they were all in their tents sleeping because it was nighttime. On Gideon's signal, his men, who were surrounding the camp, remember, they broke the clay jars that were hiding the torches and they blew their trumpets as loud as they could. They waved the flaming torches, they blew the trumpets. Waving the torches, blew the trumpets. The Midianites, asleep in their tents, woke up with such a start. What on earth is going on? What is that noise? They tried stumbling out of their tents to see what was going on. They figured they were being attacked, but what on earth? It was so loud. It was like it was coming from everywhere. It seemed the noise was just completely all around them. And as they stumbled out of their tents in the darkness and in their fear and in their confusion, things started getting really chaotic. As they stumbled out, they started getting bad-tempered. In their fear and confusion, the Midianites, they started fighting each other. They were knocking each other over. They were properly getting into it. And they were fighting each other so much, they were killing each other. Gideon and his men, they just stayed surrounding them, blowing the trumpets and waving the torches. That's all they did. And eventually, after what seemed like ages, after what seemed like a ridiculous amount of fighting and chaos and bedlam, the Midianites, who had managed not to kill each other, those who were still alive, just up and legged it. They ran as fast as they could. Gideon and his men then started chasing them, still blowing the trumpets as much as they could when they were running, waving the torches a bit. The Midianites fled and were defeated. And Gideon and his men, they'd done it. They had done it without having to actually fight themselves. Could there be a more different way of winning a battle? And God, well, I suspect God just smiled and thought, yep. See, Gideon, I told you that I was with you and you could trust me. So much of now is different, isn't it? I mean, you're back in school, but even being back in school is different. You know, you're in your bubbles. Maybe you don't get to play out the whole school together anymore. You can't have your dinner times together. The way you do some of your lessons are different. The way we're doing this is different. And for some people, that's been really, really difficult. All of this different can be hard. But God promises in the Bible that no matter what we're going through, He is there with us. And I believe that that same God who was there with Gideon when Gideon was having to fight in the most different way you can imagine, God was there with Gideon every step of the way. Gideon trusted in God. And I believe that same God is still with us today. No matter how different or how difficult things might be, God is the same. The same as He was back in Gideon's time, the same today. And I believe that if we can find it within ourselves to trust in God, even if it's just a little bit, that we can face all the differences that life has to throw at us just now. I'm going to finish with a prayer. So if you would like to just keep listening that little bit longer, and when I get to the end, if you want it to be your prayer as well, well then you can say Amen with me at the end. Dear God, thank you that you have promised we are never on our own. And when life might seem strange or difficult and different, God, thank you that you've promised that you don't change. You're the same and you will walk with us every single step of the way. Help us to trust you when we're feeling scared. Help us to trust you when all the different seems that bit too much. Help us to remember your promises that we are not alone. Amen. So, thanks guys. It's been good to be with you for this Zoom time. And I'll see you again. Bye.